This is Tucker. This is probably the last recording I will make this year. I'm recording this segment on Christmas Day, and it's been an interesting year, to say the least. Um, you know, I have not been writing a lot in the last few days. Um, I've kind of hit a speed bump with what dreams are made of. Um, I submitted a chapter, the first chapter for critique in my writing group, and the reception was mixed. Uh, I'm kind of just pantsing it mostly. I do have a vague uh, framework for for how the story is going to play out, but it's not very organized at this point. I'm just kind of pinging things around, just throwing things around, seeing if I can come up with anything I can make useful later in subsequent drafts. But this is not the triumphant return to writing so far that I hoped it would be, though it is definitely better. I'm distracted and I'm not very motivated because it is the almost the end of the year. But I do feel good. Um, I ran out of depression meds, so that sucks. But I'm going to talk about some of the books I read this year, some of the books I'm currently reading, uh, just my favorites and my least favorite. Um, I did. This was a pretty good reading year. I didn't read a ton. I really do want to read more. I wanted to read 30 this year. So far, it looks like I'm only going to read about 20, if that. But let me show you the worst book I read. And this is, I mean, I'm not. It's not bad. It's the least good book I read this year, and that is The Adventures of Amina Al Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I pre-ordered this, and so I read it right when it first came out, and I really enjoyed Chakraborty's first trilogy, the City of Brass Devabad trilogy. Um, but this one did not live up to that. It's fine. It's a serviceable fantasy adventure. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, which I saw earlier this year. Um, I mean, it's not bad per se, but it's just it's like aggressively middle of the road. The protagonist, the title character, Amina Al Sarafi, is a retired pirate captain in the Middle East during the time of the Crusades. She's older. She's like in her 40s. She's had a daughter, and that did intrigue me because I thought it would be an interesting departure from the kind of protagonists who are usually leading books like these, like very snarky, sassy teenagers. But Amina was just a snarky, sassy teenager in the body of a middle aged woman. She didn't have much personality. There's a lot of like quippy, sort of deadpan Marvel esque humor. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like a Marvel movie dressed as a fantasy adventure, and it does touch on some uh, ideas of what being a woman in the Middle Ages was like, or what being a queer was, because there are queer characters on this. But those were the. It doesn't really explore those in an interesting way. That's just like tacked on. It's a generic fantasy adventure with some uh, identity politics shoehorned in there, which, and I'm not one of those anti woke people. I actually would have loved a fantasy novel that explores the realities of being a woman or being gay or non-binary trans in a medieval fantasy setting. This did not do that. It was there just to be there, and it's spoon feeding us the message, which I uh, I don't like. It was not nuanced. I like a story, book, movie with politics that makes me think, that makes me draw my own conclusions, but it's just beating you over the head with what you're supposed to think. So I did not like this at all. I'm gonna exchange this sometime at Shamblin's, but yeah, I do not recommend The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty, even if I like her other books. So the first book I finished this year, and it was a book I really liked, was Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. It's an account of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, or the north of Ireland, depending on what your view of it is, from its beginning in the 60s through the 90s. It's some of the the major figures of it. There's the agents of the IRA who conducted operations in an effort to liberate the north of Ireland from the British. For those of you who don't know, this period of history or the context of it, Ireland for centuries was lorded over by the British, and in 1916 they had the Irish Revolution to finally liberate themselves. But the tip of the north of Ireland remained loyal to the British because that area was majority Protestant, but there was a small minority of Catholics who were marginalized. So they, rebelled in the 60s. It was an extension of the American Civil Rights Movement, and it was just, there's so many. I just love how intimate the story is. I love how it focuses on the characters' personalities, how just how it portrays trauma, how especially the stories I was interested in were the ones about the people who weren't actively fighting in the Troubles, with the civilians who were caught in the crossfire. And this is a I just really enjoyed this so much, and I was really happy to learn about this episode in history. So yeah, this one I do recommend. Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. And the next book is a book by an author I've already read, Octavia Butler, Kindred. This is, I think, her best known work. This is about a black woman living in Los Angeles in the 70s who is somehow transported back to the 1800s to meet one of her slave ancestors, and she keeps she keeps being transported back and forth from her present to the past, and it's a really interesting, really interesting exploration of slavery, because it shows you that slavery was something people actually lived through. It's not just something in a history book. You actually see, it shows the slaves as people. My favorite scene in this is one where we see kids, slave kids, having a slave auction, and it uses that scene to create a commentary about like how this was accepted as normal. They know they are slaves, but they are not. Because they're kids, they don't think about that. and it was so interesting to see, realistic reactions from characters from the 20th century and the 19th century. The protagonist is constantly worried about getting sick or getting a cut that gets infected because they don't have the same medicine in the 1800s that they do in her time. And this was very riveting story, great plot, great characters. And when I was at Shamblin's the last time, I bought Fledgling, which is another book by Octavia Butler, and I also read I read Dawn, which is another one of her masterworks in grad school. So she's Octavia Butler is an excellent writer, or was, because she's dead now. Sorry. One of the best American writers, not just science fiction or female or black writers, but I think she is one of the best American writers, and I love this, and it's beautiful. Read Kindred. So my next favorite is another classic of science fiction, and that is Frank Herbert's Dune. I wanted to read this year because of I have already seen the movie. Of course, that's just adapting the first half, and the part 2 of the movie was supposed to come out this year. It got pushed back to 2024. So, but now I can walk into part 2 having read this. This is incredible. Now, one of the criticisms I frequently hear of this book is that it's dry, and it kind of ruins itself because each chapter begins with a quote from the princess who's narrating like a history of the rise of Paul Atreides, the savior, the chosen one of this. But I disagree. I think I don't think that ruins it. This is sort of a kind of self-aware deconstruction of hero myths, and it's meditation on environmentalism. It's it's epic. It's spiritual. I highlighted so many quotes, and it's so beautiful. It's almost like spiritual in a sense. It's like a spiritual text. Like, here's a good line I quoted. Here's a good line I highlighted. Beginnings are such delicate times. Yeah, these so many beautiful lines here. I love the world of this. I love how real and how detailed and intricate the ecology of Dune is. The spiritual element with the Bene Gesserit, how they are pulling things, pulling strings behind the scenes to set up Paul Atreides as the savior of this universe. And I think I've been told you don't have to read past the first one, but I think I am at least going to read the next 2, Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. So this lived up to the hype for me. I don't know how other people think about it. But I recommend reading polarizing books. Those are more fun to read. They're more fun to discuss than books that everyone just generally agrees are good. So yeah, that's Dune. This next one is possibly my favorite book of the year, Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the scope of this and the imagination and the concept, the execution of the concept is all excellent. There's like 2 different timelines. It's about these spiders who are evolving to the level of human intelligence on a planet, and it cuts back and forth between that and the last vestiges, the last remnants of humanity who are traveling on this space arc after the world is destroyed to find a new home for humanity. And it's so absorbing, and it's so engaging, and I'm so captivated watching these 2 storylines play out, and just the building anticipation for when they were finally gonna crash together. It was great, and it takes place over the course of thousands of years, because the human characters in this on the space arc, they will go in and out of suspended animation, so it takes place over thousands of years, and it's, I've never read I don't think I've ever read a novel that takes place over thousands of years, so it was mind blowing, and it's also so captivating watching the spider society evolve, and watching, you know, just watching these humans contemplate their place in the universe and what is your duty to mankind. Does humanity deserve to survive? You know, are the things we do to help our species survive, are they worth it? Are they justifiable? And I should be getting the sequel, Children of Ruin, for Christmas, and I'm looking forward to reading that one. So, Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, these are books I'm currently reading. I'm probably not going to have these finished by the end of the year, but I don't. You shouldn't make reading into a game. You should make it into a competition. Read because you love it. This one is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. I've already read her most famous book, Rebecca, and this is good, but it's not what I was expecting. I was expecting more of something more like a gothic horror, and this is more of a romance, but I still enjoy it. This man's cousin dies, who effectively raised him, and then he travels to Italy to meet his widow, and she comes back to England, and he's suspicious of whether or not she killed his cousin, and it's about the relationship that forms between them. It's slow, not a lot of drama in this, not a lot of big thrilling moments, but it's definitely absorbing. It's very I kind of want to say cozy, but I'm not sure. No. And I'm also reading The Last Graduate. This is a book I got for Christmas last year. This is a sequel to A Deadly Education, which I really liked. It's about children from a secret society of magic users trying to survive in the magic school, which is in a pocket dimension where everything wants to kill them, and it's very claustrophobic. It's very intimate, different than other fantasy novels. I do love the premise. Naomi Novik is an excellent writer. A Deadly Education, I read that because my thesis advisor gave it to me as a gift when I completed my thesis, and I have really fallen in love with the trilogy. So there's this, and I do really love this cover. And lastly, I am reading American Prometheus, the biography of Robert Oppenheimer. Yes, I have already seen the movie, and Oppenheimer is such a fascinating figure. He's this brilliant physicist who also loved literature, poetry, philosophy, and he was a very awkward individual, always had trouble socializing. He was frequently investigated for his ties to the Communist Party during the Red Scare, and very complicated figure. I'm not really qualified to, I haven't read that much of it. I will do a more in-depth review of this when I finish it, but I'm really enjoying this. I wanted to read more nonfiction this year, and this is a good addition. This is a good piece of nonfiction, won the Pulitzer. So yeah, that's it. That's it for 2023. I don't have much else to say. I should probably try to write some more today. And I have been doing a lot of illustrating though. I've been illustrating for fun, and I'm definitely improving. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I hope you had a good 2023 and happy 2024. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Bye.